Darts players, Sean, SWR Darts Coaching, hope we're doing well. Obviously, first episode I did on here, I talked about, me, who I am. In the last episode, I sort of briefly touched on what I do in a coaching session. And in today's sort of little chat, I'm going to talk about what happens when a player comes in here who has completely and utterly lost their darts game. They don't know where they're at with darts. They may have the dreaded dartitis. They may have just given up all hope of darts. And I'm going to talk about how I deal with that when a player walks in here. Because I have had that. Listen, my wall of info, which is behind me here, I've decided to do the filming this side today. There's a lot of information on this wall, and you might be freezing, and pausing YouTube now and having a look over my wall. I don't mind if you're doing that, by the way. Crack on, just make sure you hit that follow, subscribe, and all that sort of lark. But it is tough sometimes, because you can only help and guide that player. I can only sort of help you to get to where we want you to be. And it is a joint venture. I had a gentleman in here not too long ago, and his words at the start in the assessment were, my game's gone, Sean. I've completely and utterly, I've been watching every person on YouTube, all these different coaches on YouTube, all these different content creators, all these different influencers. I've done this, I've done that, and I've lost my throw. I don't know where it is now. And that's the problem there for me, because that player is searching for perfection in a game where there's no such thing as perfection. Perfection is a 9-darter, you can argue with me, of course. And yeah, they are the perfect darts, but there's no perfect throw. What we're looking at here is we've got to try and help players to understand where we are. Have I ever turned around to a player and said darts is not for them? Yes, I have. I'm not going to sit here and say I haven't, because that person could also go, oh no, he told me once. And I did once. I always make a little quip now about, have you ever thought about taking up crown green bowls? But that's not right for me to do. But the player in question, it was many years ago, and he just wouldn't listen. I was offering advice, and his throw was all over the shop. He was bouncing as he was throwing. So as he was throwing, he was bouncing up, and everything was going jerking like this. And I'm like, mate, no. Just keep the bodies. The body doesn't need to leave the ground as you throw. None of the pros leave the ground as they throw. So why are you doing it? And he just couldn't grasp that. And his darts were everywhere. And he kept going to different dart shops, and people kept saying to him, oh, it's your darts, you need a heavier dart. But he's bouncing. And I did say to him, I said, do you do this, when you go and try other darts? He's like, this is how I throw. So how was no one else picking up on that, is what I always wondered. So within that sort of that session, it was a long time ago this was, and I've never heard off the player since, nor do I expect to ever hear off the player. But in that scenario there, what am I meant to do? Because I'm offering him my guidance, I'm offering my help, but he isn't taking it. So because he's not taking my offer of help and guidance, I can't go any further with that. And I just turned around at the end and I went, listen, unless we change something, unless you get that change in you where you don't move your body all the time, you're not bouncing as you throw, we're not going to see stability in the throw. So maybe this isn't the right sport for you. And he did take offence to it, to be fair, and fair play. Off he went, and I never heard from him again. But it's like recently I had a gentleman in here, a young gentleman in here, and as he was throwing the darts, they were very loopy. So as he's letting these darts go, he's just doing that. So there's no sort of push on the dart. There's no, every dart was floating. And as he's floating them, the darts are moving. And he turned around and he was like, I've been told I need a really light dart. No, because you're still looping him. And then he was like, well, do I need a heavier dart then? No. You need to push the dart more, because doing that isn't going to send the dart down the line of throw that we're after. So again, you then try and talk that player through that motion. And for me as a darts coach, then I'm then showcasing what I mean by that in the form of demos from myself, in the form of graphs that I've got up here and in my training book over there, as well as videos. Sometimes I've gone onto YouTube and I've shown them a player's video, or I film a lot of stuff when on the TV when players are throwing, so I can showcase that. So I can only showcase it. I can't get the player to do it. And again, he was not wanting to be reactive to that. Because I'm like, yeah, but I've had some good legs in the past. I have hit a few 180s. But you're not doing it consistent. No, I'm not consistent. No, because that isn't consistent. You need a little bit more purchase, a little bit more punch on that throw. And they are the moments when, as a darts coach, you want to do more. I've got a young lad I've been working with over the last couple of years, really, to be honest. And I've sort of watched his growth, and now we stumped that growth a little bit. We've hit the plateau. And for me, I know I can't push him any harder because it's not going to benefit him. And I can see the frustration ramping within him in our sessions. But where do I go with that? And that's when you as a coach, you've got to you sit down after a session and you do your analysis work, and that's when you've got to start thinking to yourself, where do I go with this player? Should I turn around to this player and just go, listen, we can't go any further? Should I just keep taking the player's money? That's not ethically right. But again, if I've worked with a player that I feel just is not progressing with me, am I then wrong as a coach? Am I doing something wrong as a coach? I might be. My approach, my philosophy might not be for them. So all them things then you've got to start working with as a coach. I had a guy in here not too long ago, and it was quite a funny one, to be fair. I always ask people on my assessment form, have you been to other darts coaches before? And he went, oh, yeah. I went, right, okay. I said, if you don't mind me asking, who have you been to? And he was like, oh, I've been to see Andy Cornwall, I've been to see Matt Edgar, I've been to see, there's a chap up north, I forget his name now, a Scottish chap, he'd been to see him, he'd been to a couple of other pro players that do coaching. I think Scott Waits, I think he'd been to Scott Waits. And then he's like, I've also had online sessions with such and such, Daniel Poole, and all that. And I was like, right, okay. I was like, so we've done the rounds a bit here then. So why have you come to me? And he went, well, I've come to you because, I want to see what you're going to do different. It's just because I'm not getting where I want to be. And I sensed it straight from the off. He's after perfection. When you go to other darts coaches, you should glean little bits to your jigsaw. I always talk about that. Glean bits to your jigsaw. But I think with him, he was going around to other darts coaches and hoping that one of them was just going to install that element that would tick all the boxes. But it doesn't work like that. You've got to go to a coach and you've got to work with that coach. You've got to understand that coach's philosophy and the way they want you to work. When a player leaves here, I send them away with an 8-week training plan, and I'm like, let's work on this training plan over 8 weeks. Anyway, when he walked in here, we went through that, and he told me some stories from the other coaches, and how some of them had not even got him sort of doing any mechanical work. They just had him play 501. There was one coach in particular that apparently, he just kept saying to him, no, listen, you've got to do that. You're not doing this. I'm telling you, this is what you've got to do. And I'm like, yeah, I get that. I can see where that comes from. And for me, I tried to work on the visual alignment element with him. And he was like, nah, that's not really for me. Okay, well, that's one of my areas that I work on. Training, he felt training was pointless. You get better by playing the game. He says, loads of coaches have told me that, mate. The only way I'll get better is by playing the game. Yeah, you'll get a better understanding of your game by playing the game, but you've got to train to get better at the game. He's like, no. He said, people who are a bit better than you. I was like, okay, insult me in my own room. Nice, love that. And then I just turned around, and one of the things I said to him at that point was, if I wanted to go and run the London Marathon, do I just go out and run 26 miles to get better at running the London Marathon? Or do I have to do all the training? He was like, that's a totally different sport. It's irrelevant. But it's not. Because if I want to go out and run a marathon, I've got to go and do all the training, the prep work to become a marathon runner. So in darts, I've got to do all the training and the prep work, working on my mechanics, my stance, my alignment, my mindset, and all of that together to become a better dart player. And he was like, I don't see it that way. I went, no, you don't. And that's my point. My point is that I'm trying to help you to grow all these different areas of your game to make you that better dart player. But all you want to do is just play darts because you believe that'll make you better. And it's not. So, yeah, again, is it always easy in sessions? No. Am I honest? Yeah, brutally honest. Listen, I'm not here to model collar you, or whatever the phrase is. You know, you pay me to come for a coaching session. I'm going to be honest to you. I'm going to be, you know, I'm just not going to stand here and go, oh, you look beautiful. Oh, that throw is immensely beautiful. Oh, please keep doing that. Listen, I know they're not landing in the board, but they're beautifully thrown darts. No, I'm not. I'm going to go, mate, what's going on here? Let's have a look at what we're doing. We're doing this, you know, letting the dart go like that. No, we want to go through that a little bit more. We want to change this. We want to change. That's me, and I'm not for everyone. I saw a great one the other day. Said, you know, I'm not everyone's cup of tea, but if I was, I'd be a mug, which I thought was interesting. And it is that, you know, you come to me for a coaching session. You come to me to understand what you're doing in your game, and that's what a coaching session is all about. As a coach, I'm here to help and guide you. I can't do it for you. I'm only here to help and guide you. To the best of my ability as a darts coach. So, is every session the same? Of course not. You never know what's walking through my door. It's the beauty of doing what I do. You know, I some of the stories I could tell you about some of the players that I've had in here, you would be, you know, wow. The one I will say on here, I had a guy come in once who got a dart shirt on. I used to joke it's an instant red flag for me when I see a player walk in his dart shirt, but not so much so now. But he walked in his dart shirt, and on the back it said, the gunslinger. Okay, interesting. So we get into the session, and I just turned around. I went, right, let's get you on the board. So, but just curiosity, so what's the nickname all about? The gunslinger. He went, it's how I throw my darts. How you throw your darts? He went, yeah. So I don't get it. And I'm thinking gunslinger, you know, gunslingers, they come from the hip and all that sort of stuff. I don't know. He's like, well, I'll show you now. I was like, yeah. So he comes up to the dartboard, and as he stood there, and he brought his arm back, and as he threw forward, this is how his hand finished. Every time. Every time he threw his dart, his hand finished like that. And you know what? He threw some damn fine darts as well. He did throw some damn fine darts. And I had got no issue with it. His alignment was out, so I worked on his alignment. But then he turned around to me and he went, I'm a bit shocked. I went, why? He went, you've not changed my throw. He says, that's causing me the problem, I think. I went, I disagree with you. So, because you're hitting good 20s, you're hitting good scores with it. He went, yeah, but it's unorthodox, it doesn't look right. He said, I don't see anyone else doing that. And I just went, yeah, but if I change that, you've got to change your dart shirt because you'll no longer be the gunslinger, will you? So, yeah, listen, sometimes it's not about what we see in that mechanics. Is he driving the dart there by doing that? Yeah, he is. Was the dart driving well down to the dartboard? Yes, it was. So why am I changing it? I'm not. But a player who's doing that, and that dart's not getting through to the dartboard, am I going to change that? Yes, I am. And I'm going to explain to you why I'm going to change it. So I hope that gives you a little bit more of an insight into, you know, sessions. I did mention at the start about dartitis. Listen, I've worked with several players who have dartitis. Dartitis is a symptom of a problem. I've said this for years. I remember being at an event at a football club, and there was a young lad there who got the deed only come on in the recent months, and he was distraught, and I understood it, and I felt for him, and I was trying to just peel the onion with him, trying to get a little bit deeper into his mindset, and yeah, he was quite abrupt towards me, which I understood, because it wasn't a mental problem, it's a physical problem. My arm's stopping me. Yeah, but the brain's got to tell the arm, mate. It's a mental lock, it's blockage there. You know, there's something going on. No, there isn't. Okay, no worries. I needed some other darts, but I haven't got my other darts today. And then his dad turned around and went, yeah, but you've been struggling with them as well. Yeah, but these ones do stop my arm. The dart doesn't stop your arm, youth. I said, again, it's the mental. And he just wouldn't have it. And in the end, I just sort of, I walked away, and his dad's like, what do you recommend? I went, I'll throw with his left arm and just get him throwing with his left for a bit or something. Not the right thing to do, but I thought, I can't go in and start breaking things down because he won't listen, because he wants an instant fix. And there's no such thing as an instant fix. There's no pill to take because it's not a disease. There's no cure. You don't inject yourself with something and all of a sudden it becomes better. And, I've worked with an adult player who came to me with dartitis. And we worked through a load of different stuff on the physical side. And then one day we just sat down and I went, do you mind if I talk to you about the mental side of the game? He went, yeah, go for it. And we got to quite a few root problems. Now, I'm, as I say, I've mentioned before, I'm a solution-based hypnotherapy practitioner. I've got certification in that area. I'm not an expert. I've got no letters after my name, etc. But I've done a course to study it. And we sat down and we started, just peeling his onion back a little bit. And it turned out he got a load of stuff going on. He got businesses. He got this. He got money issues here. He got problems in his life here. And I was like, all these things are just sort of clumping up on top of you, mate. I said, and you're trying to become a dart player at the same time. Someone's got to give. I said, and unfortunately for me, I want you to dial back a few things that we're doing and start, just relaxing, calming down on stuff. And when we did that, the irony was that he started, you could see that difference in him when he was up there. And he went away for, I think it was about 4 weeks, and then came back in. And as he come back in, he went, mate, he says, I've started getting a few bits and bobs sorted in my life. I've got a better routine in my life now and everything. He says, and I've started playing some good darts. I was like, all right, okay, let's get you on the board. And you could see an instant difference in him, just from the fact that we'd sort of sat down and divulged stuff that I would probably never have spoken to him about anyway until I knew all of that stuff. And, I haven't spoken to him for quite some time. It's probably about 3-4 months since I last spoken to him. But last time I did connect with him on email. He told me that he was back playing league darts. He was back enjoying darts. His life was in a better spot. He's still got a lot of issues, but he was dealing with them better. Because dartitis is a symptom of the problem. It's not a physical issue. It's a mental issue. And you can see on the signs around me, that's what I talk about when a player walks in here with dartitis. Because at the end of the day, it's about us helping you with the mental side of the game as well. So yeah, if anything I've said today just sort of resonates or sounds interesting to you, or if you are the gunslinger and you're watching this, please drop me a message. Let me know how you're getting on, because I haven't heard from you for a while as well. You can find me online over here, swrdartscoaching.co.uk. Visit my website. I now offer online coaching as well. So we can do coaching sessions online using obviously camera and the internet and the video, etc. 1 hour and 2 hour sessions available for that. So if any of it is of interest to you, visit me online. If you've got any questions, feel free to drop them in the comments. Feel free to drop me an email. Head over to Facebook and direct message me over there as well if you want. I really don't mind which way you contact me. But let's have a chat. Let's get you booked in. Let's get you down here and let's help your darts game. Until the next video, darts players. Take care. Keep them straight.